What we're going to do today is put a character into Maya and animate it. Now, I've already created this character here, and I'm going to paint him. I guess I'll just call this paint layer 1. How did I get this guy? You can actually just, when you boot it up, when you boot up Mudbox, there's some options. Would you like to create a square? Would you like to create a sphere? Would you like to create a person, a human head? I just chose person, and we're done. That's it. If you want to, we can go in and start to paint this guy. Just make sure that you are on a layer, a paint layer that you've created, and choose a color or something like that. There we go. I've chosen this flood of that paint color. Now, if you wanted to use your paintbrush and find some sort of stamp or stencil, you can just paint like a little bit of green on him and just add a little color. I'll add a green shirt to this sort of chromium guy just to show you. But please spend some actual time developing your paint here. Don't just do what I do and create this weird graphic. What we really want to do is create characters that are interesting and individual, and this is sort of boring and mannequin-like. The more time you spend adding your own characterizations to your character, just the better the character will be. Alright, so let's say that we're happy with this. I'm not, but for the sake of time, let's just move on. We don't even have to save it. We can just send it directly to Maya. Send as a new scene. Nothing selected. Okay, cancel. Object list. Let's choose our human body. Now we see we're made up of mesh and some other things, but just choose human body. So file, send to Maya, send selected as new scene. Send mesh at current level. Just send base mesh. When you've created it, there's a certain level of divisions that you've created in, or it has created. The amount of polygons that are on this. You can create more and add more detail, but I'm just going to try to keep it simple today. Page down will get you to the base model level 0. We were up at level 1, which was the highest, which only had 8,200 polygons. Page up and page down will let you walk through this. So it's a multiple. So 2,000 polygons, that's a nice number. So again, send to Maya, send selected as new scene. And yes, 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 yes. Okay. Don't save our current scene. And boom, here he is. And he is massive. Okay. Let me go to our 4-up view. You see he's a little bit big. Now we want to keep track of how big and small these things are. So I'm going to select this guy and just call it human body. In Mudbox, you can download things like pants and shirts and scarves and all kinds of stuff for your character. So you could model something else, but again, we're just going to go with this. I got to call this guy. Hit Control A to go to our channel box. He's called human body. I'm going to rename him Cat Burglar. No. You know what? Just call him Robber. Because he's not a cat burglar. He's a bank robber. Call him Robber 01. Because maybe we'll have 2. And next to him, I'm just going to create a box that is 10 tall. So that's about 5 feet from here on up, just to show you how monstrous this guy is. And I'm going to scale him down so he's about that size. Now, when you start to model your objects, just keep track of the size of everything. So this is a 10-foot cube. And that would be a guy standing next to a 10-foot cube. That looks a little better. All right, now that I have that, I can delete this or hide it. So here's my character. I'm going to hit F to focus in my scene. And I'm going to save this. So I'm going to set my project. And I'll create a new project here. So let's go up and out. Do spring 2018. Maya. Create a new folder called Bank Robber. Set that as my folder. Create a default workspace. And now that that is set, let's just make sure our project window is set up. So it's called Bank Robber. It's in our 2018 Maya class. And say accept. That way everything will be in there. Now, if you notice, I don't think that came over, the graphics that we made. Let's hit escape. I'm going to change our render just to Maya software, because I don't hate the Arnold render, it's just a little much for right now. Oh good, some of our graphics came over. So that little bit of painting I did came over. Obviously that's crap, we're going to have to replace that. But just know that you can paint in Mudbox and it'll come over. Also notice that the weird shiny material did not come over. We'll have to research that a little later. Okay. So here's our guy. Now let's rig him up. Now the animation category, rendering category, and rigging category are what we'll be using for this. Mainly we'll start with rigging. We'll test him out in rendering, and then maybe we'll play with some of his animations. But first, rigging. So, there is this quick rig thing. I'm not going to lie. It does exist. I do not like it. But, very quick and easy. Just know it exists. You select the character, which we've done. Click Auto Rig. And you can just automatically rig your whole character, which is great. And boom, it's done. Wow, that was so fast. And then you can just grab your guy and animate him, and he's ready to walk around the scene. That was way too easy. So what he has is a bunch of controls on his body that allow him to be animated. You'll have to play with all these yourself, but you want to control the hips when you're animating a body. You want to set the foot out where you want to set it. You will get it wrong in the first place, so let's say we're walking here. Oop. You see how the feet are still trying to find the floor, because that will make your life a lot easier. When you're walking, your arm is back, your leg is forward. If your leg is back, your arm is forward, right? But notice just how stiff this guy looks. It's just not, it's not great. All right. So that would be a good starting walking pose. Maybe you would set forward, maybe we would set back. Maybe lean him forward a little bit because he's trying to get forward in the walk, trying to walk into with purpose, walk into the bank with purpose. And that would be our first frame. And just for this week, I just wanted to see, can you animate this guy? And how would you animate a walk cycle? Well, you basically just need to set a keyframe. And let's make an animation layer. And instead of 24 frames per second, since we're doing, let's do 2997. 30? How about 30? 2997 is actual video frame rate. But I think that's slowly going away due to the fact that the internet has taken over our lives. So I'm going to change this to 1. Start at frame 1 instead of 125 or 1.25. And we're just going to do something quick like 60. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going from 1 to 60. You see we have this time slider here. I only want to show frames 1 to 60. Okay. You can edit the animation features here just by clicking on this little, looks like a gear chasing a running man. These are the presets. So 30 frames per second. You want to play back at 30 frames times 1. That means it will play back in real time. So when we press play, it should take about 2 seconds for this to play. If you set it at, if you keep it at play every frame, it will play as fast as possible, which is just too fast. Because the CPU will just try to play it as fast as it possibly can. Depending on the speed of your machine, that will vary. But you want to watch it in the actual time. So now that we have this control, let's go back to our channel editor, because now we have the Human IK tab, the attribute editor, the modeling component, and the channel editor. We'll just animate in the channel box editor. So if we have this foot in this position, I can just hit S on my keyboard. If you notice, it hits a translate and some rotate. Pure red means it really is animated, and this rotate in the X but not in the Y or the Z. So there's no, you have to hit S on all of these things. Uh-oh, I've made a terrible mistake. I've keyframed this at frame 27. I want to actually keyframe it at the beginning of our animation. How do I fix this? I'm going to have to right click on 27 and delete that key. I'm going to have to remember that I already had a keyframe on the ankle, because it will not show you unless you click it. So let's go back to 1. So this is our keyframe. I like this. Set that. This other ankle. Set that. This wrist. Set that. This other wrist. Set that. And this hip. Now notice there's other things you can animate on this character, right? There's things in the shoulders, which are very important. But for the sake of speed and time, I'll let you play with that on your own. If you want to move the head around, you certainly can. But I think this is good enough for now. I've also added another tutorial online, which is not my tutorial, but it's very nice, of how to create your own skeleton. And for example, if this guy had a tail, or if he was actually a dragon, this auto-rigging thing would not work at all. Okay, so we have our keyframes, our basic keyframe set. Now, going forward, say about 10. Can we move this guy forward a little bit? Pick his foot up a little bit. Rotate that foot just a little bit so it's actually the toes coming off the ground. Maybe pull this hand forward a little bit, pull this hand backward a little bit, and let's set those. Set. What I'm doing is hitting S on the keyboard every time I choose one of these 5 selections here. So now I should have my first almost step. My foot stays on the ground, and then maybe another 20 frames. And I'll move this guy forward a bit. Finally, this foot comes off the ground. This is a quick step. And this hand will go back. I'll set that keyframe. This hand will go forward. I'll set that keyframe. This foot will just come up a little bit. Oops. Actually, I'm going to keep that foot on the ground until I really have set this. And remember, you really have to watch yourself when you walk to really understand animation. So set this. And I am not an animator. I mean, I can animate. I know how to animate. But I've worked with animators. I've seen what an animator can do. And I'm just not that kind of animator. Okay, so for example, when your foot goes, notice it's almost going through the floor. It's like dragging his foot on the floor. You might want to, partway through this, pull this up a little bit higher and turn that toe a little bit earlier. And there's something not happening with his hand. I think this hand should be going back further. Maybe coming closer to his body. Okay, 20 and then about 30. We'll say this foot is set down hard. And you'll want to keep track of where your foot lands. Don't move the foot. Once it's here, now this heel is on the ground. This heel is coming up. And this heel is leaving the ground. What I'm doing is I'm hitting R, W and E, really W and E. Just getting my flexible flexing. One thing I am not animating is the toe. And we all know your toes bend, which is making this guy look very strange. So really, we want to actually bend his toe a bit. So the first time I'm doing this, so this will screw up my animation. I'm not going to go back and fix it, but just know that really, in reality, you should have that toe coming right off the ground. Alright, set that keyframe. Set this keyframe. Notice this hand should start to come back. This hand should start to come forward. Hit the space bar. And maybe we should have, I think I screwed up. We set something here. I think maybe about here, his hip should have been back a bit. here is fine. So you should maybe lean back and go. No, I think you should be leaning forward. And then about here, maybe we should come back a little bit. Here. Uh-oh. Looks like I moved my foot. You see that slide? See that foot sliding? I think this foot has to be coming up at this point. About here. Looks like this toe should be curled up a bit. A little bit. This toe should be curled up a bit. This toe really should have been curled up, like so. Put that foot down, set that keyframe. Every time I'm moving this, I'm setting a keyframe. There we go. And then toe up, and then down. And a little bit of a scooch there. You see how that works? This should be coming forward just a little bit. Looks like a little more. We're finding problems with this rig. That little slidey foot thing I do not like. There's got to be a way to set that properly. Just a little more. Maybe we have to set this down faster. And then continue on. Continue on to 60. That should get you started. Now, there's something else wrong here. Notice this hip is traveling at the same height. Now, when your legs are apart like this, your hip drops. When you're here, your hip should be a little up. But in between, say about here, your hip should be lower. Yeah, you see that inertia of the body? It looks like it has to come a little earlier and then scoop back up to the top. There's nothing in animation that's really linear. So you think that that hip drop would be in the middle? And it's not, because then that he would be up at that point. Bump, da-dum, da-dum. That's a little better. A little spring in his step. It's subtle, but it adds a lot more motion. So about here, about 4. Set that. Yeah, see, he starts and yep. And at 10, we could be up a little more. Let's see how that works. Something's wrong there. A little too tight. I gotta cut that. Delete that key. Down. There we go. And cut this key as well. Here we should come up. Maybe he's going for a jump. Anyway, I think that will get you guys started. It is, you have to do this to learn this. I could describe it to you all day, but it's like describing how to swim. We could sit on the side of the pool all day, and I could show you in the air how I like to swim, but unless you get in the water, it's really hard to practice. So the best thing for you guys to do is stop this video and see how far you can get. All right?